Commissioner Becerra.
Here.
Commissioner Verino.
Here.
Commissioner Alderete.
Here.
Vice Chair Contreras-Leo.
Here.
Chair McLaughlin.
Here.
Commissioner Mendoza.
Here.
Commissioner Nguyen.
Here.
Chair, you have quorum.
Thank you. Would everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? And Ken, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Sorry for the delay. We were having our phones set up on the email system within the Santa Ana Unified, within the Santa Ana City. So, patience, thank you. We'll go on to public comments. Does a member of the public have any public comments for a non-agenda item? If you do and you filled out a card, thank you. If you don't, if you haven't done that, please fill out a card with the secretary. I have two non-agenda items. I'd like to start with Matt Buck.
Good evening, Commission, Chairman. My name is Matthew Buck. I'm with the California Apartment Association. Just here to say hello tonight. What's going on in the city with the housing issues and the affordability crisis you guys are facing. We've proposed some solutions and vowed to come forward to help the city. And so you'll see a lot of me. If you have any questions or anything like that, let me know. Background on CAA, we're the largest apartment association in the country. We represent over 2 million units throughout California. We represent over 100,000 units in Orange County. We represent the larger members of the Irvine companies, Saris Regis, Alliance Residential, those types of folks. So we're here to find solutions. So I'm going to leave my cards with your clerk of the city here, and you guys will have access to it. Feel free to reach out to me. I want to make a note. I was a planning commissioner in the city of Paris, so you guys have twice as many people as we used to have in our meetings. So I've been in your shoes before, and I did 7 years. And so thank you for doing this for your. Trust me, you don't do this because it's for the money. You do this for the love of the city, and that, I totally get that. So looking forward to working closely with you. You'll see a lot of me, like I said. So staff as well, reach out to me if you have any questions. We're here to help, and made a lot of big promises, and I'm going to stand here to say that I'm following up on these promises to get it done for Santa Ana. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. The next one is Dale Helvig.
Good evening, Commission members. Dale Helvig, here to discuss 2525 Main Residential Development. And out of the general plan, it says home investment and pride in ownership are perceived to contribute to neighborhood quality and stability. Also, on your cover letter for the meeting minutes, you have neighborhood pride as being one of the things that the city has a vision for. I'm just here to say, I encourage you to take a look at the 2525 project before it comes in front of you. Start looking at it now. See if it's something that's a viable thing to do. We don't think it is, and we hope that you take a look at it and give it a serious look. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Does anyone else in the public have a comment there or would like to speak on a non-agenda item? Hearing none, we'll close the public speaking. With regards to our consent calendar, this is the time for the Commission to consider matters under the consent calendar. Do any of the members have any corrections to the minutes or the items that they'd like to pull for discussion or abstain from? Do I have a motion to consider items A and B?
I'll move it from them.
Second.
Second, okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. We'll move on to the business calendar. Please be advised that the action of the Planning Commission shall become effective on the day following the first regularly scheduled City Council meeting after the 10-day appeal period. Unless it is allowed by the Santa Ana Municipal Code, an appeal to the City Council is filed with the Clerk of the Council and a copy is sent to the planning department within 10 days of the date of the commission's actions, or unless set forth public hearing by the city council. An appeal from the decision or requirement of the planning commission may be made by any interested party, individual, or group. At this time, I'd like to take into consideration item number 1, conditional use permit number 2017-26, to allow the sale of alcoholic beverages for the off-premise consumption at Sai Chohan Market and Deli, located at 2 East Hutton Center Drive, Units 101 and 102. Selena?
Yes. Good evening, Commissioners. The application before you tonight is Conditional Use Permit 2017-26 to allow for the sale of beer and wine for off-premise consumption at Sai Choihan Market and Deli, and also to authorize the issuance of a public convenience or necessity letter. The project site is located at 2 Hutton Center Drive in a mixed-use development on the southeast side of MacArthur and MacArthur Plaza in a plaza known as MacArthur Plaza, surrounded by commercial and residential uses. Here you can see the site plan for the property with the units highlighted in red, Unit 101 and 102, and a picture of the plaza from the interior. The unit would be approximately where the Salada business is shown and right below the Starbucks sign. The applicant is currently in process to obtain tenant improvement permits to combine the units as shown on the floor plan here. It would allow for an on-site kitchen and dining area, shelves for a convenience market, and cold cases for products being sold. It would be a specialty where it would have both on-site dining and then products that would be taken off-site for consumption. In this case, the beer and wine is what's before you tonight. The alcohol storage area would be below the 5% threshold. And in regards to the public convenience or necessity findings, the state sets standards for the number of off-sale establishments per the number of inhabitants in the census tract. As you can see here, based on the aerial photo, there aren't a lot of residential units within this particular census tract due to the boundaries. There is residential surrounding and nearby, but not particularly in this census tract. So as proposed, the state would set the standard at 1, and there are currently 6 existing within this census tract as shown on the map on the aerial photo. With the addition of this application, there would be a total of 7 off-sale establishments within the census tract, and therefore a public convenience or necessity letter would be required. The police department has reviewed this application as well. The market is located in a reporting district that has a low percentile for crime in comparison to all the reporting districts citywide. In addition, there were no reports for police activity at this address or within the 100 block within the last year. And the police department does not oppose granting the conditional use permit. The CUP would allow for the sale of beer and wine. It supports the mixed-use environment as there are surrounding residential environments. Nearby also the hotels that people could walk versus getting into a car to drive to a facility to get items that they need during their stay or for their house. And it would also meet all the operational standards established for off-sale establishments in the municipal code. So based on that, the recommendation is to approve the conditional use permit and authorize the issuance of the public convenience or necessity letter. And that concludes the staff report.
Thank you, Selene. Before I forget, do any commissioners have anything to disclose at this point in time on this item? No. Okay. Does any of the commissioners have a question of staff? Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I know the application's for off-site sales, but I saw that there were some chairs in there for folks to dine inside. Will there be any on-site consumption?
No on-site consumption.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Selena? Go ahead.
Yes, on page 4 of 7, sorry, it's going to be on 5 now. It says, the business is not located in a high crime area. The project is located within Police Grid 191. It says that it had 155 incidents in 2016, while the average number of incidents was 373. Furthermore, in the last year, there were no reports of police activity at this address or within the 100 block. So that does include Police Grid 191, correct?
Correct.
So there were no reports compared to 155 last year? In other words, it didn't say in 2017.
Bill McGovern with the Police Department is here to answer some of these questions, and he can go over I think maybe the confusion might be the numbering of the police grids versus the total number.
Well, because this one doesn't say in 2017, we had this number of incidents. It only says that there were no activity at this address.
So when I do a analysis, I put in the address in our police activity log. I go back 365 days, and I ask for any police activity at that location. So that's a specific address. And then I ask for activity within the 100 block of that location. So it's an addressing semantic. It also came up with no activity. Doesn't mean there was no activity in the grid. The grid, is a certain size and has many addresses. But that grid, compared to 102 other grids, is very low crime. Now these incidents, these 151 or 155,
2016.
correct, that's the only statistical mark I have to compare citywide analysis is 2016. I'm waiting for the 2017, but I'm trying to be recent in going back 365 days from the day that I do this report to show that it's, at least recently, it's not
Thank
a
you.
significant number.
Okay, I think you answered my question, so you're
Okay.
still waiting on the 2017?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Okay, thank you, Selena. Would the applicant at this point in time like to comment on this item?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, honorable council members, commissioners. My apologies. My name is Alex Wu. Kevin Huffer, who was the original applicant, could not attend, so thus I'm in here on his behalf. We did have an opportunity to review the staff report. I would like to personally thank Selena for her working with us so closely and making sure that all the questions and all the issues, potential issues I may have for the site was addressed properly. I feel that this would be a great asset to the community. So I know that the report cites some numbers and basically lays out all the layout of on the floor plan. So if there's any specific questions that I may answer for you at this time.
Does the commission have any questions of the applicant? No?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Madam Secretary, have we received any written communication on this item?
We have not.
Thank you. Now it's time to open up for public comment. If you wish to make a public comment to the Planning Commission, please do so by filling out the request to speak, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Hearing none, we'll close the public comment and bring it back to the Commission. Do I have a motion to consider item number 1?
I'd like to place the motion to approve on resolution approving conditional use permit 2017-26 and authorize the assuring public convenience of necessary letter due to over concentration.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Lynette, thank you. Any further comments or any comments at this point in time? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 7-0. At this time, we'll move on to item number 2, conditional use permit number 2017-33 to allow the sale of alcoholic beverages for off-premise consumption at Mother's Market located at 151 East Memory Lane. Do any of the commissioners have anything that they would like to disclose at this point in time regarding this item? Hearing none. Jerry?
Good evening, Commissioners. This application is before you by the request of Mother's Market to allow the operation of a Type 20 off-sale alcohol establishment. as well as for the authorization of issuance of a public convenience or necessity letter. The subject site is located on the northeast corner of Main Street and Memory Lane and is within the existing City Place development. To the west, you have City Place Mall. To the north, you have the City of Orange, as well as some residential uses. To the south, the Santiago Park, as well as some commercial uses are located there. And as mentioned previously, the site is located within City Place with a mixed-use commercial development. The market itself measures approximately 2,500 square feet, and it's not subject to the distance requirements as markets that are less than 10,000 square feet are. In addition, the market will continue to operate between 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. This is a picture of the Mother's Market within the interior view of City Place. Before you have the floor plan of the existing market, as indicating the alcohol storage and display will be less than 5% of the total square footage of the market as allowed by the municipal code. The primary location will be close to the deli and cafe, which is shown to your top right corner of the floor plan. Again, as previously mentioned, this location is actually also located within overconcentration census tract. Per ABC, a total of 4 licenses are required. If the Planning Commission approves this particular license, it would over-exceed that requirement. Just wanted to make one clarification, though. One of those 4 licenses was formerly for Fresh and Easy, so it's an inactive license. However, since the license has not been surrendered back to ABC, it's still considered as part of over-concentration. And again, this particular site is now in a high crime area, so the police department also analyzed this particular location and license and had no objections to the approval. The site will meet all of the regulations as contained in the Santa Ana Municipal Code. The market and the sale of alcoholic beverages will provide a service to the community and will continue to keep the market as an economic success to the city. And the operational standards identified in Section 41-196F will ensure that the business would not have any detrimental effects to the neighboring vicinity. And with that, staff is recommending approval of conditional use permit 2017-33 and is also requesting for the authorizations of the issuance of the public convenience and necessity letter. That concludes my presentation. I'll feel free to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Jerry. Does any of the commissioners have a question of staff? No? Okay. Thanks, Jerry. Would the applicant at this point in time like to say something about the...
Hi, thank you for having us. And I'm Deborah Rubino, Chief Integration Officer for Mother's Market and Kitchen. And I just want to say that we've really enjoyed being a part of the community since 2008. And we think of the addition of beer and wine as serving 2 main purposes. One, to satisfy customer requests for beers and wines that aren't readily available elsewhere, organic, biodynamic, craft beers, local, gluten-free, things that are important to our customers, and also to satisfy a convenience. We find ourselves in times of a lot of competition for the items that we carry, and we think this creates a full shop for people, so we think it's an important addition. But I thank you very much for the consideration and the time tonight.
Does anyone in the commission have a question of the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay. Madam Secretary, have we received any written communication on this item?
We have not.
Okay. Now we'll open up for public hearing. Anybody that would like to speak at the public hearing, please do so. Please fill out a card with the secretary. Hearing none, we'll close public hearing. Bring it back to the Planning Commission.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we adopt the resolution approving CUP number 2017-33 and authorize the PCN letter as conditioned.
Second?
Second? Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. Thank you. Okay, that concludes our business section. What I'd like to do at this point in time is open up to the work study. And tonight we have a work study that's going to, Melanie McCann is going to present. And we're going to talk about comprehensive planning historic preservation update.
Mr. Chairman, some quick context. This is the third of 4 presentations. You've already had Scott Kuttner give you an overview of Neighborhood Initiatives program, and you had Jill Arabe talk about urban design. Tonight you have Melanie and her team talking about advanced planning, and then last but not least, Allie will be here to talk about current planning in about a couple of months. So,
Okay.
Melanie, it's all yours.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. So tonight we'd like to give you an overview of what's called in Santa Ana advanced planning. So we like to think we're part of looking at the bigger picture, and so our charge is to deal with programs and ordinances and such that help us envision a healthier tomorrow, a sustainable community, looking at the future and looking out for the well-being of our residents. So if you look on the city's website, there's 4 sections. This is basically what's on the website. It's got the planning counter, current planning, advanced planning, and neighborhood. So as Vince mentioned, you heard from our neighborhood improvement folks. You're hearing from advanced planning tonight. And urban design isn't in there as a separate section. It actually crosses a lot of the different sections. It's very important in current planning. It's also very important in planning for the future. So tonight we're going to touch on 5 key sub-areas for advanced planning in Santa Ana. The first one is what we call regional and sub-regional coordination. The next one, which most folks relate to, is the Santa Ana General Plan. Then there's zoning ordinances amendment. And then another category is demographics, Census 2020. And last but not least, our historic preservation program is shepherded under the advanced planning section. So the first category, sub-regional. In Orange County, we have an Orange County Council of Governments. And first bullet point on the top is the OCOG, as they call themselves, has a board and a technical advisory committee. Our staff goes to the technical advisory committee, and for the last number of years, Councilwoman Michelle Martinez has been on the board. So this group convenes jurisdictions in Orange County and other related interests to address regional topics that are of concern and are importance to all of us. It's a great forum for sharing of information. The group meets once a month. And one of the key things that the Orange County Council of Governments does is they actually approve what's called the Orange County projections. And we'll touch on that a little bit further. It's basically projections for population, employment, and housing. The other bigger picture entity for regional is, of course, Southern California Association of Governments. From a regional perspective, we also keep pace with state and federal legislation and how it influences our community. But in context of SCAG, the things that we interact with SCAG on are, number one, every 4 years they update their regional growth forecast. And that is going to get a little techie for a second, but it'll start to come together. That regional growth forecast is fed into what's called the Regional Transportation Plan. And SCAG, as the metropolitan planning organization for our area that channels out federal funding for transportation, they're required to put together that plan every 4 years. And the next item down, sustainable community strategy, that is also now required to be done at the same time as required by SB 375, because the legislators wanted to make sure that transportation planning and land use planning were better integrated. And so with the sustainability strategy, we have to show that our transportation plan and our associated land uses are reducing greenhouse gas emissions and achieving air quality goals for the region. So it's all intertwined now. As I said, that's done every 4 years. Last but not least, RHNA. Folks hear the term RHNA. It's the Regional Housing Needs Assessment, and that's where each city is allocated certain number of housing that they're supposed to target and reduce barriers to allow that be built for market rate and all levels of affordable housing. And once again, the legislation is now required that when you update your regional transportation plan, your RENA numbers, all of that's supposed to be done at the same time. So we're now gearing up to provide feedback on the growth projections from Santa Ana that'll channel into these bigger picture, longer term plans. So one of the other things that we address are zoning ordinance amendments. Our current planning section also handles some of these ordinance amendments. Ours typically have more of a regional bend to them. Like for instance, the homeless and transitional housing ordinance that we moved forward a few years back. It's also known as SB2. It was actually required to be adopted to get our housing elements certified. And then the next item down, the Housing Opportunity Ordinance, that's one that the common name for it is our Inclusionary Housing Ordinance, and that requires the 15% of new development under certain circumstances provide 15% affordable housing or the equivalent in lieu fee. And then another regional type ordinance was the Water Efficiency Landscape Ordinance you saw a year or two back, where we had to up our landscape ordinance to be in compliance with state laws, particularly with the drought conditions. The other category that we shepherd is the demographics and to some degree the Census 2020 coming up. So one of the smaller things, if you will, that we do is each year we provide housing change information to the Department of Finance. That information is used for population projections, and those population projections are then used for allocating funding. Subvention funds are based on the population. So we work closely to make sure we're counting all our housing and providing that to the state. The second category that's related to the census, the upcoming census, in conjunction with the city manager's office, we have officially said yes to participating in what's called the local update of census addresses. It's kind of a technical sort of program, but it's where we work with the Census Department to make sure they have all the addresses that are valid, so that we're getting those surveys out to everyone. So it's a kind of a data management situation, but it's still one more opportunity to have more of a complete count. The next bullet point is our housing element progress report, which we're working on now. It's due every April 1st. It's the only general plan element that's required to have a progress report reported on it. And so that we actually go through all of our implementation actions that are identified in our housing element, and we state where we are, how we're doing on all those different actions. And then we, of course, say how we're doing as relates to producing affordable housing and our RENA numbers. So the other thing that's related to demographics, and we talked about it in context of SCAG's regional plans, is the Orange County projections. So once again, that's kind of an important component. So what happens with Orange County projections is we in Orange County are real fortunate. We have the Cal State Fullerton Center for Demographic Research that assists Orange County cities with that. And the other counties don't have that opportunity. So they look to actually Orange County as a model. But so for Santa Ana, we look through our projected development that we feel is likely for the next 30 to 40 years. We provide that information, and then that is translated basically into employment, population, and housing. Now, the trick is that those numbers are then fed into SCAG's regional transportation plan, and then it also translates into our RENA number. So the more we project, our experience is the more we'll be required to have a higher RENA number. So it's anyways, we're in the process of working on that as well. We're actually meeting with SCAG and the Center for Demographic Research next month to start those conversations and start giving our input.
Melanie, on that note, how long have we been doing that with Cal State Fullerton?
Gosh, I want to say at least 10, 15 years. Before that, it was the County of Orange, but when the bankruptcy occurred, then it shifted over to Cal State Fullerton Center for Demographic Research.
In the 10 years, how have our projections have been pretty accurate? on our projections?
They're never right on.
Right.
When you're trying to project for longer term, but
We're close?
they're the best we can do, really, in the guessing game, I would
Okay,
say.
thank you.
Certainly. And then switching gears a little bit to a more local project, if you will. Circulation element update has been going on for a little while, a couple of years now. And the state law says that when you change your circulation element, you have to, substantively, then you need to incorporate all aspects of complete streets, bikeways, pedestrian, transit, etc. So the second bullet point is actually why we initiated updating our circulation element probably 5 years ago, if not more. And it was because we wanted to incorporate the Orange County streetcar in our network. We wanted to put that in our circulation element. And that was substantive enough that we said, we better update our whole general plan, our whole circulation element. So right now we're in the process of folding in a bikeway and pedestrian network, upgrading that. And actually about a year ago, we went on pause. You're probably familiar with this Safe Mobility Santa Ana plan that Public Works spearheaded to really look at the engineering aspects of having safer streets. So we were on pause for almost a year, and now that was done. Council said, yes, we want you to incorporate those recommendations into the circulation element. So now we're moving again, and we'll be, the master plan of arterial streets, that's actually where a lot of those recommendations will go, because the recommendations will be to change the street designations so that it might be a designation now that has 3 lanes going both directions. And some of those proposals are to change that to 2 lanes. And that is, in some cases, to allow a protected bike lane on either side. So those are the sorts of things that we paused for, and now we're moving forward. And we're having dialogue with OCTA because, there will be some effects to the operations of the street and some compromises that we'll have to work through. But that's moving along, and we hope to have the draft element and the EIR in December of 2018. So shifting gears, so we'll get hopefully our circulation element done, and while that's coming to closure, hopefully, we have been working on our comprehensive general plan update, which covers all the elements. So the last time we comprehensively updated our general plan was in 1982. We did do some updates in 98 to the land use and circulation, but we haven't done a comprehensive since 82. So as you can appreciate, the general plan establishes the vision for the city, the evolving vision, the values of the community, and identifies specific goals, policies, and programs to get us there. So we've already done a comprehensive outreach over the last year or two, and we had a general plan advisory group that met through 2017, and a couple of our commissioners participated on that. And so this was our last meeting that we had at the end of 2017. And the group actually provided feedback for each element on the draft goals and policies. So we'll be taking that back, refining it further, and then going forward with a draft element. Just wanted to touch on for a second, one of the things we touched on when we discussed the land use element with the General Plan Advisory Group was just in concept, some of the corridors or some of the areas that would be where we might focus attention and study for growth. And these generally coincide with our transit corridors. One of the things that was the common conversation at the General Plan Advisory Group was that we talked about 5 cores, kind of like guiding principles as we continue to work through our general plan. So it might be a little hard to see there, but you see equity, you see sustainability, and you see education. There's 5 core: health, culture. Those were the 5 themes that came through various dialogue. And so as we move forward, we're looking for those 5 core values to be expressed through all of our elements. So moving forward with our general plan comprehensive update, we're kind of in an exciting part right now. A lot of things are coming together. We have, as part of looking at potential corridors for growth, from a technical standpoint, we want to get a really solid understanding of what's on the ground now. So we have the opportunity through some air quality funding. We have a couple of part-time interns that are coming in and helping us really scour that data for existing land use. And so that will be over the next few months. In addition to that, we were fortunate to get a grant from SCAG for some technical assistance. So we'll be bringing those consultants on board, hopefully March, and they will be helping us with the technical aspects of the build-out. They'll be able to do some visuals to see what that would look like. Before and after scenarios, so just to help the conversation. And there'll also be a market evaluation as well. And so that's coming on board in March. And then with all that, staff will be preparing a draft document in-house, of course, to come to the commission, study session, et cetera. And then hopefully the environmental part of it will be funded so that we can take that draft document, prepare the EIR, and then move forward with a lot of community outreach and further vetting. One other exciting thing for us, and we probably want to thank Councilwoman Martinez because she's been able to get us front and center when some SCAG opportunities come up, but SCAG's put together this general plan data preparation book, and we are the pilot project for that pilot program, and they're trying to see if they provide all sorts of data to cities, if that could help reduce the cost and the efficiencies of updating a general plan. So as we're updating ours and we're having to pull data, we'll be using their data and seeing if it's helpful, if it's not helpful, and so we'll keep you posted on how that goes as well. So kind of on the last peg of things, historic preservation. So as all of us locals know, the historic aspects of the city is what really makes Santa Ana special and unique in many ways. And our historic program was somewhat formalized in the 1980s. And around that, in the 80s, 2 historic zoning districts were created. One that you are familiar with is French Park. It's known as SD 19. And the other one is Henneger Park, and that's SD 40. So those are both zoning tools that are in place to preserve. On top of that, from a National Register standpoint, French Park also is a national is on the National Register for Historic Places, as well as our downtown. So that's a special thing for Santa Ana. So in the historic preservation program, back in the 90s, the city did a citywide survey of historic resources throughout the city. And based on that, we actually moved forward and put a number of properties on the list. Around that time, too, the Historic Resources Commission was established, and they're the ones that review those applications or those proposals and make recommendations to council as appropriate. So presently, on our local historic register, we have 663 properties that are on our local historic register. And then we also have 267 properties that have made use of the Mills Act agreement. The Mills Act agreement is something that council has to adopt an ordinance resolution, forget which one it is, for the city to participate in that. And that's where the state allows properties that are on the historic list to have the benefit of reduction in taxes, with the intention that that goes into preserving that resource. Not putting a jacuzzi in the backyard necessarily, but preserving that resource, that historic resource. Just to mention quickly, the dots that you really can't see too well are where all of the historic resources, the 663. And we'll touch on the mapping program later. So, right about now. So this is the last slide, and it talks about, for the Historic Preservation Program, we brought to our Historic Resources Commission at the last meeting some objectives, and I believe you all have a copy. So I just threw up a couple of these to highlight the flavor of them. So one is that when we do our comprehensive general plan update, we're identifying actually creating a new element, a historic preservation element, and they'll be involved in helping to refine those goals, policies, and programs. We also want to reevaluate our Mills Act program, which I mentioned, the fees, the evaluation criteria, site inspections, all sorts of variety of things. And then we also want to reinstate our Historic Preservation Awards program. When budget was tight, that program went to the side, and we'd like to reactivate it to acknowledge some of the programs and property owners and such that have really gone above and beyond. The last point here is the educational outreach for historic resources. So it's that notion of getting more information to folks that are on the list or that are in a historic district to let them know what the expectation is, what the procedure is if they want to do renovations or additions, that sort of thing. And then one other one I want to just to touch on a couple of other that are on the list. Actually, already in our housing element, we also talk about exploring innovative strategies to preserve residential districts and neighborhoods that have historic value, and also to create guidelines for neighborhoods to pursue becoming some type of a historic district. Also on here is, actually, we have a map on the website now. We want to refresh our website page and also allow the opportunity for an interactive map, so you can click on your historic resources, find out the architectural style, the year built, and just kind of more information, kind of be more progressive in what we provide the public. So that is an overview of us trying to look at the bigger picture and continue to make Santa Ana a quality place. Be happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have a question of staff? Bill?
Melanie, thank you. That was a great presentation. It covered a lot of stuff, and obviously with some of my involvement with the General Plan Advisory Group, it's great to see all the stuff you guys are able to do, especially when you do face some of these budget cuts. So, thank you for what you do, and I know Vernie's done a lot with the general plan, so I appreciate all the effort that you've done to push that thing forward. No matter what, you're going to get it done. I know it. So, and I appreciate the innovative approach you guys are using as far as, working with SCAG and working with other entities to try to, because I think obviously it's economically feasible, but also it's just creative. The open source data. I think it's great to hear that we're doing that, especially for a plan that's going to be around for a couple of decades. So, good work on that. And one specific thing I appreciate on this list that Melanie provided us, the talk of the zoning ordinance amendment for French and Henneger parks. I think it's long overdue. I think, when a particular item came to the commission, there was some confusion as to what we could and couldn't do and what we should and shouldn't do. And so just like with any of these ordinances, they're all living and breathing. So I appreciate the updates. So thank you guys for what you're doing.
Anyone else? Question? I have one, Melanie. Kind of know what it's going to be. But I mean, I'd just like to ask simple statistics. As of when the Mills Act and the Historic Registry went back to the full fees, how many submissions have we had since then?
We have actually had 2.
And how many did we have before the fees just last year?
Well, let's see if I have my cheat sheet. I can tell you that when the fees were, what council did is they reduced the fees, or they said you don't have to pay the fees. Mm-hmm. When word came out that was going to be going away in August, we ended up having 72 applications, right, which is way above the norm. Yeah.
Right.
I want to say, if I had to guess, I'd say the year before it might have been maybe 25 or something like that, 25, 30.
Like about 30 to 40.
Yeah. Well, the years where there was not a cost is when we had, when they were higher. Let's see if I have it.
We're talking about preserving and doing the preservation, yet we're making it an expensive proposition for the homeowner and the business owner, the building owner. And we're the only city that does that in that respect. The surrounding cities here do not have that same kind of fee structure.
We are actually, we're in the midst of doing a survey of other communities that have historic programs and trying to compare apples to apples. Like, for instance, Anaheim, there's some cities that don't put many things on the historic list. So their only way to preserve it is to lure in the folks to get in the Mills Act. So there's slightly different dynamics. And that's where one of the things we want to look at, what are the other tools besides potentially getting everyone on the historic list? what are the historic districts, what are the other things that can be done. And then as well, when we're looking at the Mills Act as well, we want to look at, Santa Ana has been pretty lenient with their Mills Act. And so we want to look at some of the other communities and what state law requires, and then just vet that a little bit more. So there's no doubt that when the fees went up, it dramatically changed those that applied. So the Historic Resources Commission will be providing them comparison of other cities, more information so they can make an educated recommendation on some of that.
But we're right in the middle of a budget cycle, so we're sitting there starting the budget cycle for 2018, 2019. And everything we talk about seems to be, a moving target, and it's like, when do we nail something down to be able to move forward on this?
I know when the Historic Resources Commission gave their presentation to council, there seemed to be some empathy for that fee from the council members, but from a timing standpoint, I don't know that
Yeah, something we'll consider as part of this budget cycle. All these resolutions for fees go to council probably in May, June, so around that time. And again, Melanie's right. At the last HRC city council meeting, the HRC did a presentation, and there was some empathy to take a look at those fees again. So we'll give them some data here, probably next 30 to 45 days, with some fees that we think it should be, and then it's up to the council ultimately to make the decision.
Sure, I agree. It's up to the council, but we need to give them something for them to decide on.
And we did last time. Again, last August we requested to extend the fee resolution another 2 years. They elected not to do that. So now we got to tee up some additional data to kind of give them another good reason why it's a great idea to preserve our historical resources, and getting them on the list is one of them. So.
And there's been some discussion too that from a holistic standpoint too, whatever direction we go, that we'd want to make sure we get the word out to all areas of the city to make sure some of those resources may be in East Side or Wilshire where they're on the historic list, but they're not as aware of the program, and their structures might need it the most, because part of the historic program is you want to preserve the resources. So that might be another part of that discussion on making sure we're getting to the goal, which is to preserve the historic resources that are slipping away.
No, I agree. It's a citywide situation, and there have been attempts by different neighborhood associations to talk to the different groups of people within the neighborhood. Sorry.
Well, we can certainly keep the commission updated on our survey, and as we get more information, share it back with you, and we'll continue to dialogue.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Melanie.
Certainly.
Okay. Staff comments. Anything from staff at this point in time, Vince?
Just one here was Melanie was speaking on a globally basis earlier. I'm going to zoom down to 2416 South Main Street and MHA. That's brought up at our last meeting, some feedback from the community and from the commission on an update. So I can tell you what I know from that project here as of today. So based upon the comments we received, we did a three-pronged attack here of what was going on. We did planning, did a zoning, took a look at the zoning analysis, see what's going on there, check it with community preservation, and also check with the police department. So as far as planning, they are currently operating under a office use. Back in 1997, a CUP was granted out there at that location for a thrift store, which is different than what's operating now. So when it now went converted from a thrift store to an office, the CUP became void. So there were a couple of conditions on that CUP, but they had to do with signage, nothing to do with any kind of operations, because it was a thrift store operation that was taking up the entire building. So back in 2001, planning approved a CFO, certificate of occupancy, for the MHA to operate an office use out there. And that's what they've been operating for the last 17 years. So that's the land use perspective. Code enforcement was notified. They've been out there, and what they can do, they can sign them on some maintenance issues. But what I've also asked them to do is take a look at the use, because based upon the conversation I had with Commander Gaminsky, it really does not seem like it's operating as an office use. It's more than that. It's counseling, it's office, it's also like a hangout facility. Apparently they have some kind of pool tables and other type of activities going on in there that tends to be more than just an office use. So Alvaro is in the process of working on that aspect of it to check on the operations of it. He's been tied up on marijuana enforcement and the California lodge issue with his crew, so that's that's on the front of his plate. So in the next couple of weeks, he'll be able to get a crew out there to take a look at that site. As far as the police department, Commander Gaminsky's had his team out there, and they've been able to attack the after-hours operations and what's going on there with the loitering and other type of nuisance activities. But it's kind of like a tube of toothpaste where you squeeze, get people off the site. They tend to migrate out into the communities where we get the feedback in. So we're hoping to attack all those different issues by Alvaro taking the next step, is going out there and taking a look and seeing what they're at, see what kind of use they are. Then we'll make a determination if they actually are an office use, or if they would need to either get them a CUP, if they're allowed to go with a CUP, we can put conditions on them, or maybe they won't be allowed there at all. So there's also my understanding there was some kind of settlement agreement maybe have gone on, some kind of discussions with the city attorney's office. We're also looking into that, trying to find out if there's any records of any type of an agreement between us and the city and MHA as well. So it hasn't been forgotten. We're still working ahead on it. Just take a little bit of time. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Vince. Any other staff comments at this point? Hearing none. Commissioners' comments. We'll start with you, Phil.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank staff for getting the plans uploaded online for the website. I mean, the previous plans are very difficult to read. I think it's great to see them now in full size, so thank you for all the work that you guys did to get that done. Vince, thank you for the update on MHA. And one ask of staff is, I know we heard about 2525 North Main, and I hope that we will have, at the very least, one, if not more, work study sessions, just because obviously it's a contentious issue, so I'm hoping that we'll get a chance to look at it and just have a very healthy public conversation about it before we go into some sort of decision mode.
Sure, absolutely. The project has been submitted once for staff. The plans are evolving, Selena, correct? Their plans are supposed to evolve. There's a neighborhood meeting this week with the applicant in the neighborhood, a small core group to look at the latest revisions. What's coming up immediately is the scoping meeting for the EIR, which will be held out there at the site. And then when EIR gets issued, you'll have a meeting here to get some EIR comments. And then sometime between then, which is probably, say, May or June, and then when the project comes for entitlements, which is later this year or early next year, we'll be sure to have at least one or maybe two work study sessions well in advance of the actual entitlements. And again, you're looking at a zone change, general plan amendment, and the EIR, so it won't need to come before you. So I'll be sure we get at least 60 days before you can get some really good, thoughtful comments on the project.
Perfect. Thank you.
Lynette?
No, I just appreciate that information. I was interested as well. And then thank you, Melanie, for a really good work study session. Appreciate it. That's it. Thank you.
Eric?
No comments.
Cynthia?
No comments.
Patrice?
I have a question. When we were asked to vote on these two permits, I know it mentioned the public convenience or necessity letter. From your experience, because I was reading the State Department of Alcohol Beverages Business and Professions Code, from your experience, when the commission makes recommendations, what is the outcome? Most of the time, do they, approve them or?
Yes, they do. What we do, what it basically is, it's a letter just explaining in a little more detail why we think it's a good idea to issue a beer and wine license at that location. So as opposed to just a CEP report, we put a letter together that has a little more facts. It's a urban center. It's a mixed-use development. There's no crime occurring in the area. Things like that. And they take it and put it in a file, and they issue the license. So
It's usually positive?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. No more.
Thank you. Ken?
As you may well know, that this coming Friday is the first day of New Year's Vietnamese community in Orange County, which is what we call the Little Saigon. It's the largest Vietnamese community outside Vietnam. And Santa Ana is population Vietnamese American here. Santa Ana is ranked number 3 in the county. And I would like, on behalf of Vietnamese American community in Santa Ana, would like to wish every one of you a Happy New Year. Would like to present to you a symbol of our culture, in a red envelope, and indicated the Chúc mừng năm mới. It's been Happy New Year. In there have a brand new $2 bill. I hope that be acceptable to leave. As a symbol of our well wishes for the love, prosperity, happiness, and good health to all the receiver of the red envelope. I have some extra would like to present to if the member of public would like to have it. Let's see if you need it.
It is? There's no gift certificates in here?
Thank you. Also, you may not aware is the Santa have the largest Vietnamese Buddhist temple in the country. Believe that or not, and have a largest Buddhist temple located here in our city. And also, Santa is the starting of Little Saigon way back in 1979. So again, we just want, on behalf of the Vietnamese American community, and I would wish every one of you have a happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
Just a couple quick comments. Thank you, Melanie, for the presentation. Appreciate that. And also thank you on getting the phones up and running so everybody's taken care of there. And as long as if anybody else has some problems, I'm sure that we can get in touch with you, Sarah, and take care of that, right?
Yes.
And then, again, thanks for getting everything set up online. I was very happy with the way the website worked at this point in time, except for the fact that we had that little glitch where the same item was on both items, and that's something you're going to work to get fixed. But that was great. It really worked out a lot easier than before. We've cut down on a lot of paper consumption and everything else, so that's great. With that, do we close in the Year of the Dog? Is that what we're going to do, Ken? That's correct. All right, we'll close in the Year of the Dog then. We'll leave it at that. Happy New Year, and everybody have a safe trip home.
Thank you.
Most people don't admit that.
See you in 2 weeks. Did you see? Yeah.